Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, there's a new contract for San Diego police. Will it help keep officers on the force? And after some years of struggles, it's boom time for one of San Diego's biggest defense contractors.
And San Diegans are going red for American Heart Health Month. I'm Peggy Pico with heart disease risk in women and what to do about it.
No. Avenue Q is not really a child-friendly production. It has some great lessons, though those lessons apply better to adults.
Avenue Q's puppets may look like Muppets, but they're not child-safe. We'll have a look at this show here in San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We have an update on a story we told you about last night. San Diego and its police union have made a deal to give officers a pay raise of 6.6%. San Diego police have been struggling for years to recruit and retain officers. In the last fiscal year, 160 officers were hired and 162 left the force. City Councilwoman Marty Emerald chairs the Public Safety Committee. She says the deal will help the department keep officers from looking for better pay elsewhere.
The compensation, without giving away too many details, will be comparable to the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, which is the #1 law enforcement agency cherry-picking our great officers from the city of San Diego.
Under the tentative agreement, the city would restore holiday pay, increase health care, uniform and equipment allowance, and it would include a pay raise of 3% a year beginning in fiscal 2019. The deal must first be ratified, of course, by the union's roughly 1,800 members, then by the City Council. Cargo won't come off ships at California's 29 ports this weekend, including San Diego. The shipping companies say they won't hire crane operators to move containers. It's the latest move in their long-running labor dispute with longshoremen. Workers have been without a contract since July, and a federal mediator has been called in. The cargo companies have warned of a possible shutdown. The union says it won't be bullied. The federal government is offering up to $50 million for drought relief in the western U.S. Now, a big chunk of it will go to help farmers in California's Central Valley. The state is entering its 4th year of drought. Governor Brown says he's not ready to call for mandatory water restrictions just yet. Northern California is getting some much-needed rain right now. A Pineapple Express is expected to drop as much as 10 inches of rain in some areas up north, but this storm is not expected to head south to San Diego. State parks may soon get some help. A state committee has approved a plan to transform the park system. The vote comes after a checkered history involving mishandling of money. Recommendations include a new app for park visitors and cutting maintenance backlogs. State officials say rebuilding trust will be key to getting state parks back on track.
Ultimately, they will make a case to the governor and ultimately potentially to the people for why they need more appropriations. But the trick is they've got to get their house in order first in order to rebuild the trust and credibility with the public. That when they come to the public or the administration with a budget request, people have confidence in the numbers and in their ability to execute against the plan.
The park system lost $300 million last fiscal year. A meeting to review the plan's progress is set for this summer. As Covered California enters its 2nd year, enrollment for the state's healthcare exchange remains pretty strong in San Diego County, but the deadline is fast approaching to sign up and avoid a tax penalty. Gabriela Parra of San Diego is skeptical, like so many people, about switching healthcare plans and signing up with Covered California, the state's healthcare insurance exchange.
I saw the same doctor, the same place. I was covered. I received a prescription. I went to the pharmacy and I paid $5, and that was insane. Before, I had to go to Tijuana.
Now she can see a doctor a couple of times a week to treat her daughter's asthma with only a $20 copay. She's one of the 28,000 San Diegans newly insured under Covered California. Peter Lee with the organization says we have one of the strongest enrollments in the state.
What we're seeing is people getting the message, but there's still tens of thousands of San Diegans who are eligible for coverage who haven't stepped up. And the biggest reason is they don't think they can afford coverage. They aren't kicking the tires to see, oh my God, that's how cheap it is? Because 90% of the people that sign up are getting subsidies that bring the cost down.
Nearly 10% of the people enrolled in Covered California come from San Diego County. And a new series of videos airing on TV and social media are trying to get the word out before the February 15th deadline.
Whether you're young, Latino, African American, Chinese, we want every Californian in the door, which is why we're beating the drum over these last 10 days.
But for those who don't have health insurance, the tax penalty doubles next year. That means a person earning $40,000 could be fined up to $800 for non-coverage. Officials say more young people are signing up for health care coverage, and they've seen as many Latinos in the first half of open enrollment than they did the entire period last year. The emergency room at Sharp Grossmont Hospital was closed today for a while after a child with measles-like symptoms came in. The disease is very contagious, and there are now 99 confirmed cases in California, many connected to an outbreak at Disneyland. Health officials say if you think you or your child has measles, stay home and call your doctor or the county health department. University of California students will be required to get measles shots starting in 2017. Now, the school is also requiring other vaccines for incoming students, including chickenpox and meningococcus. You may recall a San Diego State freshman died of meningococcal disease. That was last fall. UC is also requiring tuberculosis tests for incoming students. Animal rescuers are seeing another rash of sick and starving sea lion pups turning up on California beaches. You might remember this happened about 2 years ago. Marine biologists say they're seeing even more sea lions this time. They don't know, however, why the pups are coming ashore. They say warmer waters might be forcing the mothers farther out for food, leaving the pups behind for too long. SeaWorld says it's rescued nearly 90 pups in San Diego since January 1st. TurboTax put state tax returns on hold for 24 hours because of an increase in fraudulent filings. The company says criminals are filing returns with information stolen from other sources. The victims found out when their legitimate returns get rejected. Federal tax returns were not affected. Intuit, the maker of the software, has put new security measures in place, so they're back to filing state returns. Researchers have ranked the best areas in California for entrepreneurs. So how does San Diego stack up? KPBS science reporter David Wagner is here to tell us. Some parts of the county, David, scored better than others in this study. Which ones?
Well, startup activity might be bustling in downtown lately, but according to this new study published in the journal Science, Solana Beach and Carlsbad both ranked higher than the urban core in terms of startup growth. And businesses adjacent to UC San Diego were also more likely to be acquired or launch IPOs. The authors of this new study say it's not the sheer number of startups in a given area that matters. It's the quality of those new businesses.
And how does San Diego compare, say, to the rest of the state?
So the city itself beats the statewide average, and it's about on par with San Jose, but it's probably no surprise to see that parts of Silicon Valley and San Francisco come out ahead. And again, in those regions, we're seeing that the strongest startups aren't necessarily located in San Francisco proper. They're in more outlying areas like Menlo Park and Emeryville.
KPBS science reporter David Wagner. From startups to a longtime San Diego defense contractor, tomorrow NASSCO will christen its latest ship built for the Navy. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us business is booming at the Barrio Logan shipyard.
At NASSCO's shipyard on San Diego Bay, workers in welding masks and hard hats are piecing together a record half-dozen massive multi-million-dollar ships.
2 tote ships, the 3 eco tankers, and then, of course, MLP that we're finishing up.
NASCO General Manager Kevin Graney says his 10 commercial and government ship orders stretch out through 2017 and beyond. Graney says the company's success stems from delivering ships on time and under budget.
We keep our accuracy within about a millimeter, so it's very, very tight tolerances, very accurate pieces that we'll cut. I think we're somewhere around several thousand parts a week, just cramming through based on the pace of production today.
The booming ship business is a stark difference from a few years ago during the recession. That's when the company, the largest shipbuilder on the West Coast, struggled to find work and was hit with layoffs. Now, NASCO is on a hiring binge. The average journeyman makes nearly $80,000 a year in wages and benefits.
What it means to us here in San Diego is we end up with 3,800 good jobs for our folks, and we can sustain that over the next 3 years.
Graney says a project he's especially proud of is the development of mobile landing platforms called MLPs. 3 of the 800-foot-long Navy vessels have been designed by his team.
What our folks, our engineers, came up with was an idea to reuse an existing commercial tanker design where we carved out the cargo tanks that normally would carry oil.
They replaced the entire middle cargo section with a long and flexible platform. That makes the vessel more versatile.
The Navy and Marine Corps are coming up with pretty inventive ways to take a platform like this and use it in interesting and different ways than originally conceived.
The ships will serve as forward deployed sea bases, allowing troops to respond quickly in transferring equipment from ship to shore during a crisis. Graney says the design is so adaptive that what started as a $1.3 billion Navy contract to build 3 ships has turned into a deal to build a 4th and possibly a 5th.
It's kind of a hybrid. It's an auxiliary ship. It has the capabilities of an amphib in some cases, but also can carry aircraft. So it's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, if you will.
The first 2 MLPs, the USNS John Glenn and Munford Point, have been built and launched from NASCO's docks. The 3rd ship, the Lewis B Polar, named after the most decorated Marine in the history of the Corps, is an extended version of the MLP. It has an upper flight deck and accommodations for 250 troops.
It's exciting times for San Diego and for NASCO to have these ships being built here right in our backyard.
Navy Lieutenant Commander Brian Tague with Military Sealift Command Pacific in Point Loma oversees mobile landing platform operations. He says the ships are ushering in a new era of Navy sea operations.
It's in a float-forward staging base and concept, so they will be able to tie in communications, special operations, missions, to be more versatile with helicopter landing decks and small boat operations.
Tague says the Polar will increase the military's presence in the Pacific using joint military forces.
You have the United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, and United States Merchant Marine all working together to meet the needs of the Navy for successful future missions.
NASCO wants to be included in future Navy missions. Graney says the defense contractor is competing against a top East Coast shipbuilder for what would be its biggest project ever, a $3.5 billion amphibious warship, the LHA-8.
We're figuring probably somewhere between 10 and 15 million man-hours to build, and so it'd be a big job for us, but I believe in our capability. I think we could do it.
The Navy has plans to fund 48 ships in the next 5 years, according to the defense budget released this week. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Nick McVicker helped produce that story. The Louis B. Puller will be christened at 10 in the morning at the NASCO shipyard. The ceremony is open to the public.
We thought it was gone forever, but measles has come roaring back. Is a new stadium a good business move for the Chargers? And will tax-averse San Diego agree to a half-cent sales tax increase? I'm Mark Sauer. Join me for the roundtable tonight at 8:30 here on KPBS.
You're not imagining it. You really were seeing red today. More than 25 businesses in San Diego kicked off Go Red Day. It's part of the American Heart Association's month-long awareness campaign to reduce heart disease in women. Peggy Pico looks at who's at risk and what to do about it.
Heart disease is the #1 killer of women in the U.S. It's more deadly than all forms of cancer combined. That means 1 in 3 women will die of heart disease this year, compared to 1 in 31 deaths from breast cancer. But there are plenty of ways to reduce your risk. Here with some suggestions is my guest, Dr. Pam Taub, a cardiologist with UC San Diego Health Systems. And Dr. Taub, what's the biggest risk factors for cardiovascular disease in women?
Well, it's the traditional things that we think about: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, tobacco use, being overweight, being sedentary, and poor nutritional habits.
So we've heard of those before, and many of us are aware of the traditional signs of a heart attack: crushing pain, radiating pain down your left side. What are some specific signs that women might experience?
So heart attack symptoms can present very differently in women. Sometimes it's very subtle things such as fatigue or decreased exercise tolerance. So typically a woman will tell me, I used to be able to walk 5 miles last year, and this year I can only walk a mile. So more subtle symptoms.
And they can have symptoms in other places too, right? Like their back, neck, jaw. I mean, men can too, but it doesn't necessarily just have to be in your chest.
Correct. And the other commonly confused symptom in women is some of the sweating that they get with exertion. They sometimes interpret it as hot flashes, but a lot of times it can mean that there is a cardiac issue.
So this exertion element seems like a very important one. When should you call your doctor with these symptoms, and when should you call 911?
Well, that's a complicated question, because if a symptom is new and it's severe and it's debilitating, you should clearly call 911. For instance, if you wake up with crushing chest pain. But if you're having something more subtle, you're starting to notice some fatigue, decreased exercise tolerance, that's one where you can go see your doctor and get that addressed.
And they could decide whether it is something like a cardiovascular problem or something else. There's been a drastic drop in the number of people and women who smoke. What kind of impact has that had on cardiovascular disease?
Well, based on the recent statistics from the American Heart Association, about 200,000 of tobacco-related deaths are from cardiovascular disease. So with the reduction in tobacco use, those numbers of deaths should go down.
Now, you've said that there needs to be a shift of focus, not just lose weight, you're having chest pain, do these things. You said there needs to be a shift of focus when it comes to treating heart disease or preventing heart disease.
I feel there needs to be a fundamental paradigm shift in our health system. Right now, we're a very reactive health system in which we react to a problem, a blockage in an artery, and we put stents or we do surgery. We really need to be more proactive and preventative. I believe preventative cardiology is the next frontier.
Name a couple of proactive things we could do before we get to that point.
Starting from a very early age, in your 20s, looking at your diet, looking at how you can increase exercise, having your primary care physician really carefully monitor your blood pressure, your lipids.
And you're talking from in the 20s, early age. What are some of the latest treatments, though? You named some of them, but if somebody has had a heart attack or does have cardiovascular disease, what are some of the latest things we can do?
Well, there's a lot of procedures that we can do, of course, but statins, which are cholesterol-lowering drugs, are the cornerstone in our management of high cholesterol. There's also some new drugs that are being developed that will be reducing cholesterol that are currently in trials. But statins, blood pressure reducing medications, those are the cornerstone of therapy.
And we're talking about these lifestyle changes, but genetics plays a role too. What's the situation with genetics and heart disease?
Well, that's a very specific research interest of mine, because there's a lot of people that do everything right. And you look at them and you would never think that they would have a heart attack, and these people do. These are typically people that are exercising or running marathons that have a heart attack, and those people have a very strong genetic component. And those are people we're trying to understand better through research. So there's some new blood tests that are very useful in helping predict and identifying these people.
So if you have a genetic or family history or think you might, then there's a blood test for that. That's interesting. We have to wrap on this. You're the director of a new cardiac rehab and wellness center. Tell us, how is that going to help patients?
Well, at the new Jacobs Medical Center, which will be opening in 2016, on the ground floor we will have a cardiac rehabilitation and wellness center. And again, this is another way we're going to cause a fundamental paradigm shift in how we approach patients, from focusing on patients that need procedures to preventing. So in this new rehab and wellness center, we will work on a lot of lifestyle modification. We'll have classes on nutrition, on stress reduction.
So sort of a whole look at it. And there's more about that on our website, kpbs.org. Dr. Pam Taub, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, how streaming music is changing the way artists release their tunes. That's Friday on the PBS News Hour.
Coronado Playhouse's Avenue Q gives its audiences an unusual warning: adult themes, adult language, and full puppet nudity. Now, these aren't the kid-friendly Muppets of Sesame Street, so you might not want your kids to see this story. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando goes behind the scenes to talk with the puppets of Avenue Q about challenging stereotypes and working with humans.
At first glance, Avenue Q might remind you of the PBS children's show, Sesame Street.
No. Avenue Q is not really a child-friendly production. It has some great lessons, though those lessons apply better to adults.
What part of the Avenue Q theme should we start at?
Don't do anything nasty.
Well, let's do something nasty.
So some of the people here say things I don't really like.
It's not always PC, but it's really funny.
There's a disclaimer. You know, it's not really appropriate for children.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The sun is shining, it's a lovely day.
It could be misconstrued as, you know, we look like Muppets, therefore it could be a kids show. So that's why we really have to tell people, be careful, don't bring your kids here.
There's a posted disclaimer that warns of adult themes and language.
Even I curse a little bit.
As well as full puppet nudity? Oh my. And some of the puppets can't even say their names on camera.
My name is Lavinia Thistle.
The puppets display some attitude as they tackle the challenges of growing up in a world a little more complicated than Sesame Street.
Well, I can get a little sassy. And, you know, I never mean to hurt people's feelings, but it's all a part of growing up. And I think that's really what this play is about. It's about growing up and finding out who you are and what you really want in your life.
It's a lovely story in many ways. It's about learning to accept others.
That's a lesson learned backstage at Avenue Q, where puppets and humans must work side by side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a puppet and whatnot, and they're human beings, so it's different kind of DNA sort of configurations. But other than that, we're all the same.
Yeah, we like the humans. We work pretty well together. I like my human. Thank you.
We're all just really good friends, really tight-knit.
Very, very, very close.
Perhaps too close. That's because in order to perform on stage, the humans have to run their hands up the backs of the puppets.
Well, it's not up my back. It's up another hole, but...
I'm kind of used to it by now, having a hand up there.
I basically have a giant hole in the bottom of my body, and she just puts her hand up there, and then I have one rod attached to this arm.
He is kind of a standard two-person puppet, and the bottom is a big, heavy ring that kind of gives him the torso shape.
So Katie just puts her hand up there and moves my mouth around, moves my neck around, and moves my arm around.
So my arm kind of turns into his arm. And then I'll have my other puppeteer on the other side, and she attaches to me, and so we kind of just walk around together, making sure that we're always kind of in sync and synchronized.
One of the big challenges for me was stepping into his shoes and really, like, bringing him alive. Because there are times if you don't do anything, it'll look like a dead puppet on stage, and it'll lose that magic.
I mean, he's already cute, so I just kind of, like, find ways to, like, you know, make him cuter, or this is one of my favorite dance moves. just a twist like that.
And right now is just waiting to be awakened.
Breathing life into inanimate objects is hard work, say the humans.
We found that doing this for a while hurts a lot.
It's been a lot of, like, pat the head, rub the belly at the same time.
During one number, it's kind of a workout. And after we're done, I'm just sweating. Yes, I have cotton balls.
TMI, bad ideas, Bear. But the hard work does pay off, and something magical happens on stage.
And that's one of the beauties of this show, is that the puppeteers are on stage with the puppets, so you are welcome to watch the puppeteers if you want to.
It's kind of like a blurred image of both. You kind of just blending of both the puppeteer and the puppet. But I think people are focusing primarily on the puppets.
If I'm doing a good job, then they're actually just looking at Princeton.
Avenue Q breaks some new ground with its human puppet collaboration.
There's a lot of funny jokes that a lot of us can really relate to that totally redefine musical theater as most people visualize it. So yeah, come see Avenue Q. You'll love it. It's a great show.
You live on Avenue Q.
From Avenue Q, this is Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
A button goes there.
That was great. This was fun because normally I don't get to sing on stage.
Oh, that's true.
Avenue Q has sold out so many shows, Coronado Playhouse has just extended the run through March 7th. Well, we may see some overnight fog once again, but overall we are looking at a mostly sunny weekend. Clouds expected along the coast. Temperatures will take a slight dip by Sunday. Partly cloudy, though, in the inland valleys, mostly in the 70s there. Mid-60s in the mountains with some lows, overnight dipping into the mid-40s. Warmer in the desert, mainly in the 80s, with a mix of sun and clouds this weekend. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.